Hello everybody, my name is Ratnos, and in today's video we're going to talk about some simple recommendations for your first 2 Spark crafted items. I made an earlier video where I talked about how that system works to try and give you an understanding of how the rules of it worked and how the Spark crafting actually works, but in this video I'm instead going to try and kind of synthesize that plus what we know about the embellishments right now to give you some recommendations for what items might be good to make first. And there's obviously a lot of different players that are in a lot of different general situations here, so I'll try my best to make good recommendations for each different type of player. So it's worth noting, a lot of this stuff remains unsimmed, unsolved, and different specs either have or haven't solved them. Different theory crafters for different specs are updating them at different speeds across different sources. If you want to be sure that you're not missing out on a really cool effect, then waiting until there is an authoritative answer from a source that you trust on your spec is a good way to do it. That being said, there are some general rules of thumb that we can talk about that I think can make certain options look more attractive. So again, the way the embellishment system works is that every embellished item is unique equipped embellished 2. So you can have 2 embellished items on, but you can have any number of crafted items. The crafted items are just time-gated by the sparks of Ingenuity, of which we'll get 1 more on the raid release date, and then 1 more every 2 weeks thereafter, until we get like 5 sparks, at which point there will be infinite of them available or something. So you can have 2 embellished items, and then any number of non-embellished crafted items over time, but at the start you're only going to be able to have 2 total items at all. Embellishments are generally throughput increases. They represent adding something extra to the item that makes it better. So you are going to want your first 2 crafted pieces to be embellished in most cases. That being said, the embellishment does add, I think it adds difficulty to the craft, maybe. So maybe it'll lower your item level, potentially, depending on how you're getting this crafted. So that is something to look out for, but probably generally worth it. There are a bunch of optional reagent embellishments, which can be put onto your crafted items if they are kind of default crafted items, right? Like these primal molten leg plates. And then there's items with built-in embellishments. Of the built-in embellishment items, some of them look pretty good. Especially the jewel crafting necklace Elemental Lariat. A lot of people have pointed out this one as having a very strong effect here on a 2 procs per minute, a bunch of stat, giving you extra gem, or giving you extra stat from that. So this one seems like something that is very likely to be a nice, safe craft for you, crafting yourself an Elemental Lariat, using the jewel crafting item to stick an extra 2 sockets in there as well, get 3 sockets in that, and you've got an item that will probably last you for quite a while. The recipe for this doesn't come out until Primal Storms drop, which is also on the raid release, so jewel crafters will need to go and farm up that recipe before they can craft this, but if you're the first jewel crafter in your server to be able to do so, you'll likely be able to make some money from crafting these things. So that's a pretty safe thing to consider for a lot of specs, it looks like. The other thing I would say is, if you're a Mythic rating person, or a Heroic rating even person, you probably don't want to craft into a tier slot. If you do craft into a tier slot, you can just have the gear that drops in the raid that's in that tier slot be assigned to somebody else, yes. But you run into this danger scenario of your Great Vault containing, like say you craft a robe, and then your Great Vault has a robe in it next week, a tier robe. That's a pretty bad case to happen. So reducing the chances of that happening, unless there's something really good about crafting into one of those slots, which the upside is that stuff like helmet, robe, and pants have a lot of extra stat budget on them, so getting those at high item level is nice. Then I still probably think it's not worth it, because you can get that same high item level benefit by instead crafting a weapon. So crafting yourself a 2-handed weapon, for instance, or offhand, main hand, offhand, however you want to set up. I'm pretty sure there's more than just these 3 weapons available. There's a bunch of blacksmithing ones and stuff. But I guess maybe these are the only ones that are pre-embellished, perhaps. Yeah, these and the other ones you can put your own embellishments onto. So crafting yourself a 2-handed weapon has a special benefits if you are an early Mythic raider. And that is because in order to put these things at Mythic item level, it requires a concentrated Primal Infusion. A concentrated Primal Infusion requires you to do 10, some combination of Mythic boss kills, and 16 or higher keys. Now, and also there's high PvP that gets that as well. You also need 150 Primal Chaos to make a concentrated Primal Infusion. Now that's achievable, but if you're doing that twice to make 2 crafted items, that's a lot more. That you need another 10, 16 or higher keys and another 150 Primal Chaos. If you instead just make 1 concentrated Primal Infusion and use 2 sparks on a 2-handed weapon, then you get to save that. Like, you get to get the full value of your 2 sparks sooner without having to grind out a second concentrated Primal Infusion first. So, my recommendations, therefore, are for Mythic rating characters, generally, like, or characters that will be able to do 16s in the first week as well. I think it makes a lot of sense to look for a 2-hander if you are a spec that benefits from that, especially if you're a spec that benefits from weapon DPS. If not, or even if so, another great option is that jewel crafting Elemental Lariat. That thing looks to be rather good. Crafting one of those and then a 1-hander is a good option as well. Another option is to craft yourself just a default ring. I think a jewel crafting ring is a really nice spot because it comes pre-socketed. That is a benefit over other slots in that way. And because I don't think that like the belts and stuff come socketed from crafting. So the ring gives you that extra benefit that you can't get from, or that's like, it's guaranteed good RNG instead of guaranteed bad RNG on the socket roll. The necklace also comes with a socket, but necklaces always can have 3 sockets this expansion, except for the Rathian one for some reason, where you can add extra sockets to them using a jewel crafting item. So it just costs gold to add sockets to necklaces, but the ring, that socket being on it is nice extra value. So yeah, my recommendation is 2-handed weapon or jewel crafting necklace plus 1 of 1-handed weapon or ring are very safe things to do. That being said, if you pull the trigger on those things before you're sure that none of these cool embellishment effects are good for you, then that is something you're doing at your own risk. I do not know if any of these things are insane or if any of them are worth making sure you get. You should potentially, depending on what level of guild you're rating in, you may want to wait until that information, until you've at least look for yourself and look through the proc rates and kind of do some math and rule out all of these embellished items. I'll put a link to this guide in the description below, and also make sure that you don't just want to, get a weapon with the fang adornments. I don't know how much damage that's going to represent, but if you're playing a physical damage dealer, that's another thing to potentially look into. But either way, I think that's a pretty safe kind of bet for people early on. If you're not Mythic rating, if you're not doing plus 16 or higher keys, and you're not going to get access to a concentrated Primal Infusion, you can do a similar strategy, instead using a Primal Infusion, which is earned from doing 11 or higher keys or heroic bosses. You can also get that from the end of the Renown tracks, although presumably not, unless you've been doing some weird grinding stuff, you're not particularly close to that probably right now. But yeah, same logic could apply for you. Or instead, you could decide to just craft into whichever slot you don't happen to drop from like your first couple of M+ runs. Or you could instead, if you don't have access to good crafters of a certain type, you could just go with whatever you happen to be specialized in crafting, or whatever your friends happen to be specialized in crafting. All of the kind of super min-max considerations obviously become a lot less important as we are no longer talking about a world of like rushing to get your concentrated Primal Infusion and kill mythic bosses in the first week. The tier slot considerations, even if you're not going to be killing bosses that drop tier early, if you're not planning to get your tier until the Inspiration Catalyst comes out, your options open up again. It is worth noting you will not be able to catalyze crafted gear, so don't rely on high item level crafted gear becoming high item level tier. Instead, you will want to get your highest item level gear from other sources and turn it into tier set pieces with the Inspiration Catalyst later down the line. There's also crafted engineering bracers that anybody can wear, and engineering helmets that only engineers can wear, that can have a tinker put in them that is like a special gem that goes in a special engineering socket, which can include a battle res or like a flamethrower that does a bunch of damage. And those might be good, especially the battle res for Mythic Plus might be something that you will want to consider if you're a Mythic Plus focused player. Most people that are, super high Mythic Plus players are currently going to be focused on the raid for the first month or two, so that's a down the line type thing, but that will be another thing you can use one of your crafts on. Anyways, I hope this video has sort of cleared things up. Again, check with your theory crafting for your class if you can find it. The Wowhead guides I know are being updated with all this as quickly as they can, but of course, a lot of this information and like the sims for these different classes, specs, and crafted effects are being updated as we speak. So it's not all there yet, and you gotta potentially make some choices for yourself. But yeah, again, I want to call out this Elemental Lariat as looking like it's pretty good. One small caveat is that since it hasn't been released yet, it is the kind of thing where Blizzard could come in and nerf it before it comes out as well. So do be careful for that. Hopefully there will be a big post about that if it does happen, and I'll try and comment down below if that does happen whenever it happens. But you know, in case I miss it, just double check to make sure that hasn't happened before you commit to that specific item. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it's cleared things up. Let me know what you're crafting down in the description below or comments below. See you in the next one. Bye.